Sienna Hart had always imagined her wedding day as something out of a fairy tale. Flowers, music, a man who would look at her as if she were the only star in his sky. Instead, she found herself trembling inside a dusty stagecoach rolling into Red Ridge, a frontier town carved between mountains and wild silence. Her arranged marriage was not meant to be to the man she loved, mostly because she had never loved anyone. And her husband-to-be, Matthew Briggs, was older, stern, and far too cold. She had met him only twice, both times under the watchful eyes of her mother, who only whispered, "He is wealthy. He will give you security." Security. The word felt like a cage. The stagecoach wheels jolted over uneven ground, and the sun blazed through the window as the coach came to a stop. The driver called out, "Red Ridge Station." Sienna stepped down and inhaled the dry desert air. It felt rough, like the world itself was preparing her for a life she didn't want. She looked around nervously. That's when the shadow fell over her. A tall figure approached. No, towered. A man at least 6'5", broad as a barn door, with shoulders that made the horizon look small. His hat cast a long shadow over eyes that burned like wildfire. Blue, sharp, and far too perceptive. He wasn't Matthew. She knew that instantly. Matthew did not possess this presence. The giant cowboy stopped right in front of her, the leather of his boots creaking softly. "You're the one." His voice was deep, so deep it felt like the earth trembled beneath it. Sienna took a step back. I think you're mistaken." He lowered his head slightly, studying her as if he were reading her soul. "I don't make mistakes, sweetheart." Her heart slammed against her ribs. He extended a large, calloused hand. "Name's Colter Hayes. Matthew sent me to pick you up." Sienna blinked. "He sent you?" Colter nodded once. "Town's dangerous for someone like you. You look like you've never seen dust before." She swallowed. That much was true. Colter reached for her suitcase effortlessly. Effortlessly meaning he lifted it as if it weighed nothing. She hurried behind him, trying to keep up with his long strides. "I'm perfectly capable of carrying my things," she said with forced politeness. "I know," he replied. "But Matthew said you get overwhelmed easy." Her cheeks flushed. "I do not get overwhelmed." Colter stopped walking, turned, looked straight at her. "You're shaking." That was the moment she realized she was. Sienna wrapped her arms around herself. "It's only nerves." He tilted his head. "Fear." "It's not fear," she insisted. Colter stepped close, too close, leaning down so his eyes were level with hers. "Everyone who comes to Red Ridge has fear," he murmured. "But don't worry. I'll stretch your limits until you forget every one of them." Her breath hitched. She stared at him, speechless. Colter exhaled softly, straightened, and motioned toward his horse. "You'll be safe with me. Hop on." She hesitated. The man was enormous, intimidating, and yet there was something about him that felt grounded, protective, real. She climbed onto the horse, but the moment she did, she felt off balance. Colter swung up behind her, his arms bracing on either side of her so he could take the reins. His presence wrapped around her like a warm shield. "Hold on tight," he said. "I am holding on," she whispered. "Not to the saddle," he murmured near her ear. "To me." Her pulse almost exploded. She reluctantly gripped his forearm, solid as iron. Colter clicked his tongue, and the horse bolted forward. The wind whipped past her hair as they rode through open land toward the Briggs ranch. Sienna felt her fear melt away. Not entirely, but enough to breathe again. When they reached the ranch house, she finally climbed down, but her legs nearly buckled. Colter caught her arm instantly. "Easy." His voice was gentler now. "You okay?" "Yes," she breathed. He didn't look convinced. "Matthew's inside," he said. "Prepare yourself." She squared her shoulders, nodding. As he started walking away, she called out, "Colter." He stopped but didn't turn. "Thank you for helping me." He glanced over his shoulder, the faintest curve touching his lips. "I'm not helping you," he said. "I'm protecting you." And then he walked away. Her heart did not calm for a very long time. Matthew Briggs was nothing like Colter. Tall but thin, polite but cold, wealthy but hollow. His handshake was limp. His smile was thin. His eyes held calculation, not affection. "Sienna, we'll have the ceremony in 2 days," he stated, already turning away to study ranch paperwork. "Until then, stay inside. The frontier is no place for a delicate girl." Delicate. Fear. Innocent. Everyone seemed to have an opinion of what she was. Sienna spent the afternoon wandering the ranch house, feeling more like property than a bride. She tried to focus on her future, but every thought led her back to one thing: Colter Hayes. The giant cowboy with eyes like storms and a presence that made her feel alive. She found him in the stables that evening, brushing his horse. He didn't look up when she approached. "You shouldn't be out here after sunset," he said quietly. "I needed air," she muttered. He paused, glancing at her. "So you ran from the house?" She stiffened. "I didn't run." "You did." Sienna glared at him. "You don't know me." Colter set the brush down. "I know fear when I see it." She clenched her fists. "I'm not afraid of the ranch. I'm afraid of—" She stopped. "Of what?" "Of Matthew. Of this marriage. Of her own lack of choice?" Colter's voice softened. "You can tell me." Sienna exhaled shakily. "I don't want this wedding. I don't even know who I'm becoming." Colter walked closer, slowly, as if approaching a wild animal. "You're becoming someone who deserves better," he said. Her breath caught. "Better than what?" "Better than a man who wants a bride he can control." She stared at Colter, stunned. "If Matthew heard you." "He won't," Colter cut in. "Because he doesn't come out here. He avoids the stables. The dust ruins his shoes." A reluctant laugh escaped her. Colter's eyes warmed. "I'm serious," she whispered. "What do I do?" Colter stepped even closer, towering over her, but not to intimidate. To shield. "You decide what you want," he said simply. "And then you fight for it." "I don't know what I want." He leaned down, his face inches from hers. "You will." Sienna felt her pulse quicken. A pull, a gravity, something undeniable. "Colter," she breathed. He straightened abruptly, as if reminding himself of a boundary. "Your promise to another man," he said, stepping back. "And I am not the man you should be looking at like that." "But I am," she whispered. Shock flickered in his eyes. Sienna turned to leave, but Colter's voice stopped her. "Sienna." She froze. "You're stronger than you think," he said firmly. "And when the time comes, you'll choose the life you deserve." That night, Sienna couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Colter. Saw the way he looked at her like she wasn't a delicate doll but a woman made of fire. And for the first time in her life, she felt like she could burn. The morning of the wedding arrived with a brutal windstorm. Dust swirled across the ranch, slamming against windows and rattling the wooden walls. Matthew stood in the parlor, adjusting his suit. "We must proceed. Delays create gossip." Sienna felt numb. A knock sounded at the door. Colter stepped inside, dust clinging to his coat. His eyes found Sienna instantly. Concern sharp and unmistakable. "Matthew," Colter said, "you can't take her into town for the ceremony. The roads are flooded out. The bridge collapsed last night." Matthew frowned. "Then we'll do a private ceremony here." Colter's jaw tightened. "She doesn't look ready." Matthew scoffed. "She's simply overwhelmed. Women get emotional." Sienna felt something inside her snap. Not loudly. Quietly, like a thread breaking. "No," she said softly. Matthew turned. "What was that?" "I said no," she repeated louder. Colter froze. Matthew's eyes narrowed. "You're nervous," Matthew said. "You'll adjust." "I won't." Sienna moved away from him. "I don't want this marriage. I never wanted it." Matthew's face darkened. "Your family expects this." "My family expects me to survive," she cut in. "Not to disappear." Matthew took a threatening step forward, but Colter was between them instantly, towering like a wall of muscle and fury. "Back away," Colter warned. Matthew scoffed. "You forget your place, Hayes. You work for me." Colter's voice dropped to something dangerous. "I don't work for any man who tries to own a woman." Matthew glared. "She is my bride." "No," Sienna said firmly, stepping to Colter's side. "I am not." Matthew clenched his fists. "You're making a mistake." Sienna lifted her chin. "Maybe. But it's my mistake to make." Colter turned to her, searching her eyes. "You sure about this?" Sienna nodded slowly, her voice steady. "Yes. For the first time in my life, I am." Colter's expression softened into pride. Matthew stormed out of the house, shouting orders to his men, but nobody listened. The storm outside had become too fierce, and by the time he reached town the next day, he had already filed for annulment. Sienna stood on the ranch porch at sunrise, the sky glowing gold. Colter walked up beside her. "You did it," he murmured. "You stretched your limits." She looked up at him, heart thundering. "You helped me." "I only guided you," he said. "The strength was already yours." Sienna stepped closer, breath trembling. "And now," she whispered. Colter's eyes softened in a way that made her feel like the only person on the frontier. "Now," he said gently, "you choose the life you want." Sienna reached for his hand. He took it slowly, as if savoring the moment. "I choose freedom," she said. "And I choose you, if you'll have me." Colter lowered his head, his forehead touching hers. "Sienna," he murmured, I've been yours since the second you stepped off that stagecoach. The storm had passed. The future was wide open. And for the first time, Sienna wasn't afraid at all.